one key thing that we miss is that we compare the current version of human with the current version of AI. If you are not adopting these tools that are latest on the market, you are not keeping up with the market. The bottom line is AI is going to replace people who don't use AI, because it's a tool that is making your life better. It's like having a person say, I am not going to use Microsoft Excel. Yes, I'll crunch more than 1 million numbers.
Welcome to the Singularity Syndicate Podcast, where we bring together leaders, researchers, innovators, and intellectuals to discuss transformative technologies shaping our future. I'm Naja Faysal.
Today, we're joined by Dr. Shah, AI researcher at Arizona State University, and we'll be exploring the impact of AI on college enrollment and jobs. We'll also discuss AGI, machine consciousness, and how is he using machine learning in his medical research. So let's dive in.
There was a tweet a few days ago that got my attention. It's Yann LeCun. And for those who are listening on the podcast, you probably can't see the screen. So Yann LeCun retweeted a statistics or a graph that shows that the number of computer science students crossing over the number of enrolled students in all humanity subjects combined. We're looking at a global population that believe that computer science is the most important subject to study in 2024 and beyond. What can you say about that, Jay?
The way how I interpret this trend would be very different from what Professor Yann LeCun interprets. Is there's surely an interest, there's a growing demand of people who can understand programming, who can understand computer science, because there's a huge boom that has been fueled by interest from industry and a lot of other venues. But I think it's very unfair to say that computer science as a degree or as a major, it's going to trump in the next 10 years. There's surely going to be a shift. I feel because of the whole digital revolution, you see, if you really understand how AI came into place, it was majorly fueled by the internet boom. We have lots and lots of data sets now available online, and it perfectly fits because we as humans cannot crunch this many numbers, but computers can, algorithms can. So there's a new trend that people who are not essentially from an engineering background, if they can supplement themselves with some coding background or some coding skills, then it's going to be a very interdisciplinary effort. So the way you mentioned arts, humanities, or even medical researchers, like I have talked on a lot of my podcasts that people who are from medical science, they're also learning some basic skills of coding in order to do their basic jobs, because I don't really need to replace that particular person because what he or she brings is very valuable. But I think from this particular trend, we can say that the art of programming is going to be very ubiquitous. It's not now limited only to engineers or computer science engineers or computer systems engineers. It's going to be much more ubiquitous. So if you want to be really good at, or maybe A+ at what you do, even if you're not from engineering, it's going to be the case that if you learn programming, it's a good choice to understand what programming means.
If you have a little brother who is finishing high school and want to enroll in college, what major would you advise him to choose, computer science or something else?
To be honest, I do this on a regular basis. I have a lot of people who reach out to me to understand which kind of majors are really useful in the next upcoming few years. And to be honest, I still try to make sure as a neutral argument, because as a person who has been a math lover and programming lover for more than 10 years, I try to push them towards programming. But it's really key to understand what they like in their high school, because not a lot of people are actually fan of mathematics, to be honest. Like, people don't really understand how much mathematics it goes into programming, into understanding what data structures and algorithms is. And even though you are a fan of trigonometry, it doesn't mean that you would be a fantastic coder or programmer. So it's really understanding what key aspects of mathematics or other sciences that person would like. Some people would not be cut out for science itself. So it would be a key basis, like I at least make sure to open them to the umbrella of what programming is, and maybe if they like the idea of what programming can do and what mathematics it would include, then I would just help them. And the best way is maybe to do a boot camp. There are lots of boot camp programs that you can do for a couple of months to understand if you are really cut out for programming or like things that lead after that. So that's my way forward, but it's very hard to just say a one shot answer.
Just to shift gears now to jobs, what jobs do you think are going to be most affected by AI?
I think jobs that primarily deal with lots of data and things that can be automated very easily. So normally, like, we have a terminology where we say if you have a structure, let's say you are just summarizing things, or if your task deals with lots of numbers but you weren't able to do some analysis. I think those are the kind of tasks which will be using which might be having an AI tool be easily replace those jobs. But for tasks that are really creative, if you are creating something of your own, like for example you are doing this podcast, one of the key things that you are bringing is your own background knowledge and asking questions and reaching out to people and making the stories connect. So what you're doing is something you are creating and posting out content that wasn't before. I think those kind of the jobs, I think AI won't be able to replace very soon. But things, if you are doing some mundane tasks which does not require any much of intelligence, the basic bar for basic intelligence is going to go up because AI tools would be very efficient and removing human errors. So the answer is, like, if you are not getting updated to the AI tools right now, maybe your job is kind of along the lines of getting crushed by the future AI tools.
Do you think people will still want to see a human being on YouTube and on a podcast, for example, versus a computer generated or maybe an AI replica of my voice?
So I think whenever I have thought about these kind of debates for a long time, and one key thing that we miss is that we compare the current version of human with the current version of AI. What we really are missing is how are you gonna adapt to this new tool? So if Naja is hosting a podcast, I'm just comparing with the current version of a podcast that is generated using AI. But I'm not comparing this to a version where Naja is using AI as a podcast tool to further what you were able to do previously. So that version is going to be very critical. If you are not adopting these tools that are latest on the market, you are not keeping up with the market. So I think it's the question of us being replaced by bots or any AI tools is really redundant because that's never going to happen. It's more like we are going to be in place of making leveraging or maybe leveraging these AI tools at best to fill up the gaps. Maybe you weren't good at some other tasks. Maybe can you use an AI tool, or can someone develop an AI tool to fill up those gaps and make your jobs much more easier, much more creative? So it's, yeah, the answer is basically the question is wrong. We are just we are looking at this in the very wrong angle. We should be looking this as a progressive angle, as a forward angle.
All these companies are laying off people. So with you telling us now that no, it's not because of AI, it gives us more hope that, the jobs are coming. So is this what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll give you one very simple statistics. I interned at Amazon in 2022, and previous to that, there are lots of statistics available online how much Amazon hires in terms of interns, software engineering interns, or any kind of SE interns that used to be before AI. And those numbers, and when I joined, I had like whole department of people who were PhD students or master students who were hiring along the lines of research scientist AI interns. So these are the people who would be using or deploying in some or the other version of AI. And if you see, even in the last 10 years, jobs that have been created new that are using in some version of AI or not has doubled, or even like maybe more than that. And this has been always used in conjunction with normal software engineering interns. So there is no actual statistic that says that we have cut down on jobs because we now have a AI model that can do things better than you. Maybe the bottom line is AI is going to replace people who don't use AI because it's a tool that is making your life better. It's like having a person say, I am not going to use Microsoft Excel. Yes, I'll crunch more than 1 million numbers myself. I'm going to do the totals. It's going to, yes, definitely I'll hire a person who can use Microsoft Excel because he or she can do these things better than me. So that's the same case scenario, maybe in a different dimension. AI is much more complicated than Microsoft Excel for sure. But it's going to be a new tool that you have to up your skill with your resume.
So I agree with you with the current AI systems, with existing systems. But when you look at companies like OpenAI and Google, what they're aiming for to create AGI. Do you think AGI will replace people?
First of all, to answer that question, the answer is no. And to even extend it further, nobody actually has a very strict definition of AGI. People have very rough definitions of AGI, and the AGI meaning is I have a system that can perform almost equal to an average human being. But if you see, what we have currently is what we say narrow intelligence. So, for example, me or you as a human being, we can do lots and lots of tasks that include mental, cognitive tasks, physical tasks, walking, breathing. There are lots of other tasks that our subconscious mind does. But this is typically very, very impossible for an AI system, because what we have developed over the years is a very narrow intelligence. So we have an AI intelligence that can understand the language, but cannot understand the cementing concepts of a language. How do I originate? Because we have a 2-year-old baby who can speak better language than the latest AI model that was trained over the whole possible knowledge corpus. So the definition over here is like, we don't have a very technical definition of how do I evaluate a particular model's AGI capacity. And to date, we don't have any AI system that can do that. So any speculations would be completely hypothetical. But to answer your other question, which is like, can AGI replace our tasks? Maybe yes, because if you have really an AI system that can perform on par with our basic average human being, and then on top of it do a really good task, yes, technically that person would be superior than many of the human beings. But do we have any indications in scientific literature or mathematical literature can we do that? Not yet, because we haven't understand what intelligence means. And how do, first of all, if we understand what intelligence means, then we can map it to the mathematical constructs. But we don't have that, and we also don't have any mathematical construct in place that can formulate that. So yes, the best we have done over the years is develop an algorithm that can find patterns in the most obvious ways that we as humans set the objective to, and that's what neural nets are.
Do you think because we are coming from a biological evolution that we have some sort of intelligence that machines can never replace?
So I'll phrase this in a very different way. So there are two particular terms that we need to be very understanding of. Is one is intelligence and the other is compression. If you understand intelligence is like me telling you something and then you learn on top of it and you act on top of it. And this has been, the short answer is yes, evolution, or maybe I like to call it experience, because the way how you react to my question is based on your experience. Maybe you learned it from a part of your cultural difference, intellectual difference, diversity, or whatever way you interact with. But if you see most of the AI algorithms right now, they are just compression algorithms. We are giving it a data set, whatever, like maybe billions or 100 billions of data set, it compresses it to 1 billion parameters. That's what it does, but we do not have a clear understanding of how the causal links between these information entities really play into place. But as humans, we can do that. If I give you a bunch of information, you can understand and find patterns. I'm not just compressing the whole article into 2 sentences. So we are at the stage of compression, but we are not at the stage of intelligence. And that's what makes us as humans really successful, I would say.
Are you saying that machines will never achieve our level?
Like in 2024, we do not have any algorithms that can exploit that kind of intelligence from data sets. So as of now, the answer is maybe not, or maybe it's very far. We do not have that happening in the near future. That's what my understanding is. But if like never say never, that's the bottom line with AI nowadays. Right now, we don't have any AI algorithms that can exploit true intelligence from that.
So you think that at one point an AI system could become sentient or conscious?
I have followed this topic for a long time. I have myself asked this question to a lot of senior researchers who I invited from Google, and the whole thing of sentience. First of all, we need to understand what sentience is. Like if I ask you, Naja, are you conscious? Like, how do you define that? First of all, I don't have an answer to that. Then how can I say a machine system or a software system is conscious? Secondly, consciousness is something we need to have an objective for, but normally when we train the model, like I said, we are compressing. The objective of that particular model or the mathematical function that we are trying to estimate is just to compress the data in the most apt format for a particular objective. Normally, we use this objective as classification, regression, prediction, whatever you want to use it for. So there are no incentives for a model to be really conscious. But the only way and why media highlights AI models to be conscious is we don't expect computer systems to be this good. And whenever it outputs something that we are just shocked to be magical, we just say, oh, it's magic, it's conscious. It's like the how the fear of ghosts came into humans, right? There was a very nice Twitter thread by a very nice philosopher. He said, if you really understand the backbone of why people are scared of ghosts, is because we cannot comprehend certain set of informations and we label it something that we again don't understand. And that's where the concept of fear comes in. And I think maybe in some ways that's what's happening with AI being conscious things. In future, I cannot answer if AI is going to be conscious, but in the current stage, there are literally not even 1% proofs that AI can be conscious in the remote sense.
But if we don't understand what makes us conscious, then we shouldn't eliminate the whole notion of having an AI to be conscious. So when AI is cracking this bits in a data center somewhere, could it be having a sense of self? Does it have any emotion, for example?
Exactly. We don't see any, like I can easily spot an emotion in humans, but we do not see that in AI systems. That's maybe factor number one to evaluate if we have consciousness. So again, it boils down to the whole definition. We first of all, like normally if you ask me, I would like to have a definition. First of all, define me, what do you understand consciousness? If emotion and subjective responses to a particular thing is your definition of consciousness, then no, AI systems do not have, because they do not really understand if a particular output of its system is going to change what emotion reaction in the human. So mathematically and definition wise, we do not have a clear answer, and that's why I would rather refute the hypothesis rather than investigate it further. I hope that makes sense. But again, I'm a new researcher in the field, so I could be easily wrong. Maybe 10 years down the line, someone listening to this podcast can refute me saying that what this person said is wrong.
What was the hypothesis of your research, and what is the future implications of it?
Yeah, so from a very broad perspective, what my research tries, or maybe what I'm trying to do and accomplish with my research, is to use AI, which are fantastic at understanding patterns, which is where we as humans in some ways lack, and use that property on complex data sets. So in medical research, so we have MRI scans, genomic analysis, PET scans, which are highly complex in its own nature for us as humans or medical experts to understand. And there are lots of diseases. So primarily I work with Alzheimer's disease, migraine, post-traumatic headache, and persistent post-traumatic headache, where medical experts do not have a clear understanding how these diseases develop in human brains, because brain in itself, like as we are discussing neural nets right now, even we don't understand neural nets. Just imagine, multiply this to a billion times, that becomes brain, and we don't understand how things develop. So for example, in Alzheimer's, people still don't have an understanding of how these diseases progress in humans, because it has a lot of other factors. So people who have different genomic and expressions vary and have dementia in a very different sense, versus people who have different ethnic backgrounds, different demographic backgrounds. So I really want to apply and develop some novel kind of AI algorithms that can leverage the complexity in a data set and maybe help medical experts understand how these diseases progress, or maybe how these diseases develop in the first place. And the biggest implication that you asked is, maybe if I can have a good model that can early detect, because most of these diseases are irreversible. So if you are diagnosed with Alzheimer's, there's only little much that I can do to help you make it reversible. Like if you have cold or flu, I have medical vaccines that I can give you so that you can reverse the flu and you can go back to being healthy technically. But in Alzheimer's, in migraine or headaches in general, we do not have that capacity. So the implication is, maybe if AI models can give some hints to how these diseases can be early detected, and how I can use that information to develop better targeted drugs. So I can really understand what Naja is facing and make a medicine that is specific to his profile or background, rather than having a general medicine for everyone and anyone.
This is the final question for you about the possibility of having health our health monitored in real time throughout the day, throughout the years, and then using that as a predictive model of what's going to happen so we can prevent it. Does that how it works? Is this part of your research?
You picked out a very nice insight. I think not a part of my research, but that's the broader implication of using AI in real life. So I want to have an AI system that can monitor and track your own personal information, create an expression or a profile out of it, and really understand the heterogeneous nature of person. Because if you see, there are lots and lots of research being done where diseases or the body progression. I particularly work with brain aging, so how your brain ages. And if you see, the aging pattern in human body is very different. So for example, if I am at age 40 versus you are at age 40, we have very different clinical and medical signatures, because maybe you are aging faster or slower because you worked out a lot in your life, so you are much more healthy, like compared like athletes. Like athletes have like one of the most best forms of their bodies versus people who have been very sedimentary in their whole life. So I really want to understand that, and that has to be very multi-dimensional or multimodal, as we were talking earlier. So I have to understand this using your heart analysis, maybe your brain analysis, your gut analysis, your digestion analysis, and that's what is going on. But since we are like, as we were discussing earlier, like AI over the years has been very narrow, right? Like we haven't been able to make a system that can encompass this much amount of information and produce a result. So we are taking, I think, a very small approach and making the narrow things lesser narrow. So as we move forward now, we are trying to integrate, let's say, genomic analysis with neuroimaging one at a time. And then in the future, I want to understand how MRI scans, PET scans, and genomic analysis can impact the cognition of a person. So the answer is yes, but we have a long way to go. Currently, AI systems are not really capable of understanding many modalities of data, but that's the ideal goal. I want to have a system that can, because if you see how you go to medical experts, right? If you go there with some analysis that, oh, am I suffering from some disease, the person will look at maybe your demographics information, your blood samples, your MRI scans, your other knowledge, and then he will use his own knowledge to make an informed decision. But AI systems can't just really use your MRI scan and say, oh, you are up for surgery, let's get you ready for it. It would be very uninformed. So yes, to answer your question, that's where we are heading towards, but we are taking baby steps in that direction.
Dr. Jay Shah, I enjoyed the conversation tremendously, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thanks for inviting me to the podcast and the things you are doing as a podcast host. I think we need more people like you who can educate the audience about the good and bad things of AI. There are pros and cons for AI systems, and we are at that time where we need people like you to really demystify. So thanks a lot for doing the whole podcast and inviting me to your podcast on a weekend. So thanks a lot.